A good speaker will tell you their story. A great speaker will tell you your story. The truth, Samir, is that it's not truly a fear of public speaking. It's a fear of public judgment. Very simply, the four-word secret to confident public speaking is it's not about you. It is so challenging, isn't it? Nowadays, people's attention span is so short and there's a million options. So if you're not interesting right away, then people will just go someplace else. It's just swipe thing. And I smiled and I was like, oh, good. You back there. I love people who have no poker face. I love people who have no filter because we can have a much better conversation because you will hide nothing from me.
Sachin Tendulkar, whenever they come on the ground,
yes,
you have to hear that sound of the whole ground.
Okay.
Sachin, Sachin, Sachin.
Imposter syndrome, for those who don't know, is the simple definition is the fear of being exposed as a fraud. An important point, Samir, is that you can't just tell a story. You must experience a story.
What is the procedure to go in the TED Talk? Suppose if I want to go in the TED Talks, I want to deliver something to audience. What should I do?
Have you ever felt your throat tighten before you speak? Your hands tremble, your heart races, and your mind suddenly goes blank. Even though you practice over and over again, you are not alone. Stage fear and the public speaking anxiety are some of the most common struggles people face across every age, profession, and the background. The fear of a public speaking holds back millions of brilliant voices, maybe even yours. But what if I told you it's not just a fear, it's a skill gap? And skill can be learned. This is the powerful episode of the Samir Show. We sit down with the one of the only Dr. Laura Sicola, TEDx speaker, whose talk has crossed 6 million views and an internationally recognized expert in leadership communication and a vocal executive presence. So together, we unpack why your voice goes monotone and how to instantly add life and energy. The science behind those awkward pauses and the mental blocks. How to hook your audience in the first 7 seconds. How to train your pitch, your presence, and power like a muscle. Dr. Sicola has coached CEOs, political leaders, and the global influencer, and now she is here to help you. So whether you are a student, teacher, entrepreneur, manager, or someone who just wants to speak without fear, the conversation will give you the tools that can change your life. It is not just a podcast, it is a masterclass in a communication. So if you ever wished your voice could command the room, this is your moment. So hit play and let your voice rise.
So hello, Laura. Welcome to the Samir Show. Good morning, and how are you today?
I'm very well, Samir. Thank you so much for the invitation. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, definitely. And you know that why I invited you, because I saw your TED Talk video, and that was really inspirational. And the many people are facing about the stage fear, about the public speaking. Today, everyone wants to be a YouTuber or the influencer. Everyone wants to be online, right? So many people are facing the issue about the stage fear, about the facial expressions on the camera. So today we're going to talk about the same thing. So my first question to you, stage fear is one of the most hardest fear in the world. I say it's about the death. Why do you think the many peoples are the dread about the public speaking?
It is so common to have that fear, just like you said. And there's actually a comedian in the United States, I think it was Jerry Seinfeld many years ago, who said that if more people are afraid of public speaking, even more than death, then that means at any given funeral, more people would rather be in the coffin than giving the eulogy for the person. So why is that? What is it that creates that fear? And the truth, Samir, is that it's not truly a fear of public speaking. It's a fear of public judgment.
Okay.
a fear of public scrutiny, the idea of getting up there and opening ourselves up to the world and having them tell us that we're not worthy, that it's not good enough. That's all of that judgment is really what we are afraid of. So I have a 4-word secret for
Okay.
confident public speaking.
Hmm.
And it's so simple, but it's a big mindset shift. Are you ready?
Okay.
So, very simply, the 4-word secret to confident public speaking is
Hmm.
it's not about you.
Okay.
That's it. It's not about you. If you are the speaker, we have to, as the speaker, if I'm the speaker, I can't sit here and think about myself the entire time. I'm a guest here on your show. I'm honored to be invited, but I can't come here and focus entirely on what if I do this wrong? What if I do that wrong? What if he doesn't like this answer? What if people think I'm stupid? What if people don't like the way I'm talking? What if they doubt this? What if they don't? He just said I have a great TED talk. What if they don't think it's his, me, 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 me?
Correct.
That's guaranteed to make me hold back, be paranoid and panic, and stumble all over my words because I'm doubting and second guessing myself with every single word. Instead, my focus as the speaker needs to be generosity, needs to be making sure that I give the audience the best experience possible. Because whether you are a podcast listener or the audience in a TED talk or attending a meeting someplace, all audience listeners, way deep down, are all thinking about the same thing, themselves and the
Correct.
value that they're going to get. No one has to listen to a podcast, right? They come because they are hopeful that it's going to be a good experience, that
Yeah.
they're going to like the host, they're going to like the guest, they're going to get good information that's useful and maybe enjoy the conversation as well. That's what they want. So my job, your job as speakers here is to provide that outcome for the audience. So as long as we come in and say, okay, if I were in the audience, what would make it the best experience possible for me? What content do they want? What kind of stories do they want? What kind of speaker, what kind of energy do they want? My job is to give you that. That's
Right.
it.
So every podcaster or every host or a guest, they want to deliver the knowledge or they want to deliver the informations whatever they have or whatever the best for it, right?
Yes.
But the problem with the attention span with the public or the audience, as you know, right now everyone was busy on the Instagram reels and shorts.
Yep.
So attention span is not even more than 7 seconds. Right?
Yes.
So how the person or the host that give the addictive to the people, that how to communicate with them so they are attract to that particular host. So what are
People's
any psychology techniques that you have that the speaker overcome that fear about the attention?
It is so challenging, isn't it? Nowadays,
Yeah.
people's attention span is so short and there's a million options. So if you're not interesting right away, then people will just go someplace
Exactly.
else. It's
Yeah.
just swipe, 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 swipe,
Yeah.
swipe. I think it's two things. Number one, you need a hook. So, what are you going to say in those first 7 seconds that's going to make people want to give you 7 more? What's the value proposition that what's the focus of today in this video? I'm going to give you the top tip for something. Okay, if that's an interesting hook, then people want to know. Or I'm going to test 3 new lipstick colors, or I'm going to, show you how to make your computer go faster, whatever it is. And the way you deliver it has to show your personality, has to show that you're excited about it, that there's an emotion, there's an energy. It doesn't mean you have to be an extrovert. If you are someone who feels like, well, I'm not, I'm kind of a quiet, you can be quiet, but intentional. And you can let people know that you're excited to share this with them, that this is super important, that they need this, that you were so amazed when you discovered this thing, you just had to share it with the
Right.
rest of the world. So you don't have to be huge in energy and moving around, but you do have to sound like you genuinely want to share this information. If you just get on and you say, so today I want to talk about, they'll never let you finish the sentence because it
Right.
sounds like you don't want to be there. If you don't want to be there and it's your content, why would anybody else want to stay?
Exactly.
That's the impression you have to make.
Exactly. But when as a public speaker, right? So what, as a public speaker, what you have to think, that you want to deliver the message the audience that you want to talk about, or what the audience wants to listen? What's the difference between that, and what is the most impactful?
Well, it's both. It's both. The question is how you merge those,
Hmm.
because either invited you to talk about something,
Hmm.
or you are inviting them to listen about something, depending. If it's your show, you're saying, hey, everybody, this is what my show is about.
Hmm.
If that's interesting to you, come listen.
Correct.
And, they're not going to randomly show up to your show and say, Samir, can you talk to me about chemical engineering?
No.
Like, that's not what you do. If they wanted to know about that, they'd go somewhere else. And that's okay. You don't pretend to be an expert about everything or have a show about everything. So, assuming there's a mutual agreement about what the topic is going to be, you are there to share your expertise and to share your advice and to share your findings with them, because you believe this information is useful or valuable or interesting, hopefully all of the above, for them. And that's the key, those last two words, for them,
Hmm.
not just to you,
Hmm.
because we all often get stuck in what I like to refer to as the expert's curse. When you're an expert in something,
Hmm.
you love all the details.
Correct.
You know all the background.
Hmm.
You know all the connections to everything, and it's all interesting and important to you. But your audience maybe doesn't have that background. They
Correct.
don't need all those details. They don't already know all that contextual stuff. So we have to think, okay, who is my audience? Is this their first time that they're ever hearing about this? Are they new to I don't to ChatGPT and AI, or are they experts in AI? You have to tailor your message
Hmm.
to the level of the audience, to the needs of the audience, to the interest of the audience. I have a PhD in linguistics. I'm talking to you about things that are based on my expertise, but I'm not going into all of the detail that somebody else from my academic background would care about. Your audience doesn't care, and that's fine. It's not my ego. It's not their intelligence. It's just they don't need all that background. They want to know, Laura, give me a tip I can use right now.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's what I'll do. So that's where we find the balance between what I want to talk about and what they need and want to hear, and will find it useful so they get that experience that says, that was such a great use of my last 30 or 60 minutes. I'm so glad I invested the time to join Samir on that show.
Yeah, definitely. And the one of the incident that I'm talking about, so I heard the one of the stand-up comedian, that's an Indian stand-up comedian. So he talked about that when he went to some different city
Mhm.
and he was delivering the jokes, but somehow that all the audience was silent and no one laughed about
Oops.
her jokes. And that was around the 1 hour show,
Mm,
stand up live. So he was really frustrated. His
yeah.
energy was very nervous. So hardly he passed 30 minutes. After that he was really shivering, and he just thinking in the mind that if that this show is completely, it's complete early, right? He's
Yeah.
thinking about it. So when it's happened the same situations in your life, while you're speaking on the stage,
Mm,
I'm talking about the nervous energy,
mm.
right? What the host should do at that time, they should leave the stage, or still they have to finish the whatever the talk they want to do?
So there's a lot in what you said. So you just shared the experience of a comedian who has an
Right.
hour-long show, and 30 minutes in, no one's laughing.
Exactly.
That's painful. I
Right.
can't imagine being in that situation where you feel like such a failure. I don't know what that comedian did, if they stayed on the stage or if they left, or if that was the culture of the audience that they're not supposed to laugh out loud. I don't know what country they were in or what the group was, if maybe they were smiling and laughing inside, but they're not supposed to laugh. I don't know. I have no idea what the situation was. Or it was just a bad comedian. Or I've seen comedians who were talking on stage at a specific event, but
Mhm.
their content was totally inappropriate
Mhm.
for the audience. It would have been funny for a different group, but
Mhm.
not funny. And it was kind of insulting and offensive for this particular audience.
Mhm.
In that case, hopefully they have the awareness to recognize this is not, I'm wrong to be using that. So you have two choices at that point: either leave or talk. Part of comedy, and there's a little bit of a difference in the overlap, but improvisation
Mhm.
is key, and flexibility and being able to shift gears is part of executive presence too. If you're talking to a group, comedy or no comedy, and
Mhm.
you realize that it's what you're saying is not being received well in your presentation, do you just keep pushing to the end and say, well, I have 10 more slides, I just want to finish? Or do you stop? I would certainly, if I were in a presentation and seeing like this is not being well received, I would stop and ask, please, I see your facial expressions. I am hearing some comments. Share with me. What is it that you're hearing? What is the concern? What's not connecting well? What questions do you have? Help me understand you, and we'll adjust. And I've done that in trainings. I remember doing a training once for a relatively large group, and I said something, and I saw the guy in the back go, like he made his whole body jerked and his head went back and his eyes got big and his head shook for a second, like I had just zapped him with
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
And I smiled and I was like, oh, good. You back there. I love people who have no poker face. I love people who have no filter, because we can have a much better conversation because you will hide nothing from me. Tell me what's going through your mind now. What is it that struck you when I mentioned this topic? And he's was honest with me. He's like, I'm not sure how that works here and here and that. I said, good, let's dig. And we were able to identify where contextually certain things can apply differently or would work differently for different audiences. And we had a really good conversation about how to make decisions
Mhm.
about presenting and those kinds of things, rather than saying, well, here's my advice and you should do this 100% for every time exactly like this. No, that's okay. Be open to welcoming the audience's input, because if you understand, oh, that's the concern, that information was not conveyed to me beforehand. Thank you for sharing that. Let's shift. If you're the
Right.
expert talking, you should be able to
Mhm.
shift a little bit. Doesn't matter that I had 5 more slides about that. Go
Mhm.
past them and get to the other stuff. Or say on this slide, yes, look at point 1 and 2, ignore the rest. It
Okay.
doesn't suit your context. That's okay.
So it's better to talk with the public also, right? That immediate the conversation. So at least you start the conversation with them. So at least they have the attention span with that towards the host, right? That is also a good
I
thing.
think so. I
Yeah.
think so. You are, I mean, my job, look, I'm not a comedian. I
Mhm.
am an executive coach.
Mhm.
My work is in executive presence,
Mhm.
leadership communication, how to establish yourself as a leader who others want to follow.
Mhm.
And I truly believe that a big part of that in any context is having the humility and having the emotional intelligence and
Mhm.
the personal self awareness to recognize when what you're saying is not connecting with your audience, and inviting the audience to speak with you, if it's one person or a
Mhm.
hundred people, and say, what do you need? What's missing?
Mhm.
What's going on here? Let's not just keep pushing through something that's not working.
Mhm.
Speak to me. I want to listen to you, not just dictate to you. That's a leader I want to follow.
Okay. Now, let me talk about the monotone. Okay. So many speakers are struggle with the monotone. They
Hmm.
sometimes they don't know about that when they have to pitch and when they have to low,
Mm,
right? So is there any practical steps that can someone add to variety of that voices and the sound energy?
sure. So we're talking about tonality, which is the melody in your
Right.
voice, the highs and the lows, and when you move your voice, your pitch in different directions. Um, there's a couple of things. Number one, Samir, I am a huge fan, and I tell all of my clients to do it. You need to record yourself. It doesn't have
Okay.
to be video. I do recommend video, but at least audio.
Hmm.
If you are going to speak for 1 minute
Hmm.
or an hour, it doesn't matter. Record yourself for just 1 minute. It's
Hmm.
enough to see. And record as if you were talking to your audience, because chances are in your mind, you're being energetic and enthusiastic and engaging with
Hmm.
your voice.
Hmm.
But then when you listen, there's probably a good chance that you're going to go, actually, I sound kind of boring.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And it's normal for people because you love your content but you're focusing so much on trying to remember what to say next. You're in your head instead of in your heart.
Right.
And you're not sharing your enthusiasm or the importance or the passion or the gravity of whatever this topic is. You're just sharing the facts. And when you only share the facts, you talk from your prefrontal cortex. You talk from your mental Excel spreadsheet.
I agree.
Does anyone look at a spreadsheet and go, "Oh, I can't wait to spend more time with that"? I mean, maybe somebody does, but it's rare.
Right.
And you have to be able to look at the spreadsheet and say, "Wow, look at this part." Or, "Ooh, look at that part." So whatever it is that jumps out at you, for better, for worse, important, not so important, the energy that you feel inside or the curiosity or the concern from those points must be transmitted through your voice as you're talking about it. So I highly recommend everybody, you never have to worry about loving the sound of your voice. You never have to worry about loving watching yourself on camera. Nobody does, me either. That's okay. But you do need to learn to love the value that you get from listening to yourself on a recording, from watching yourself on camera, because no one can teach you as much as you will learn from watching 60 seconds of yourself about
Right.
how you can improve.
So do you feel that the deepness of your voice is also important while you deliver? Like in many people are delivering their voice are so deep,
Mm.
right?
Well, so everybody's voice has a range,
Right.
right? There are people who have very high tenor voices or soprano voices, squeakier voices. They will never sound like a deep bass. They can try to fake it, but it's ridiculous. And
Yeah.
someone who is naturally born with that deep, resonant voice will never sound squeaky. It's not, I mean, they could fake it for a moment, but it's not sustainable and it's not real. But everyone does have a wide range of what they can do with their voice. The problem is that most people only use about 2 inches worth
Correct.
of the range. And most people they talk, and here's the range that they go, some higher, some lower, some higher, some lower, but it's still all in a very narrow space. But here's a test, especially for those who say, well, I just have a deep voice. He's a guy with just a gravelly voice. That's just him. Are you a sports fan, Samir?
Uh, Not much right now.
Is there any sport that you particularly used to
Cricket.
like growing up? Cricket. Okay.
Cricket. Yeah.
What was your favorite team?
India, definitely.
Okay. And within
Yeah.
India, any particular regional team?
Uh, there's no regional team that the
Okay.
India, the specific batsman I like, that's a Virat Kohli.
Okay, so you had your favorite player on your favorite team, your Indian team, and if you ever watched and the referee made a call that was a bad call against India and against that particular player, how did you and your friends react?
Yeah, definitely they're gonna shout.
And what would it sound like? Can you demonstrate for me? What
Oh,
would they?
like
Yeah,
or
so it
the
starts with
public will silent, maybe.
Okay. And if you tell me if this sounds familiar. A lot of people that I know, and including the men with the deep voices, if the referee makes a call that is against their favorite team and it's a bad call, we think they made a mistake. They'll go, "Come on, no, are you blind? That's not he wasn't out. He was," and the voice goes way up here. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, agree.
Do you know anyone who does that? Any of
Yeah.
your friends?
Yeah, agree. So there is another player called as Sachin Tendulkar. So whenever they come on the ground,
Yes.
you have to hear that sound of the whole ground.
Okay.
Sachin, Sachin, Sachin. The whole like world is telling the Sachin, Sachin, Sachin. So that was a sound that every player would like to hear about.
Sure.
That kind of the energy they want to pass to that particular player, right?
Yes, exactly. So in the same way that even your friends who have really deep voices in their normal and maybe kind of monotone in their normal speaking personality, were they cheering Sachin, Sachin, Sachin down there? Or were they going up higher? Sachin, Sachin.
Exactly.
Right. So suddenly for that moment, their pitch went way up. Their energy went way up. And it was totally natural and totally authentic, wasn't it?
Right. So
It may not be their standard, but it was very natural for them in that moment to feel the
Mm.
energy that made them want to use their voice in that way. So they do have the range. They
Mm.
just don't think about using it as much.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
they can stretch beyond that very minimal. They just have to stop being self-conscious
Mm.
about it. And they don't have to go way up there, but
Mm.
somewhere between the low typical range and the high cheering sound, they still have all that space to work through.
Right. So at the time of speaking, right, as a host, on the which kind of a topic they have to higher their pitch, and at what kind of a talk they have to be a lower.
It's not about what kind of a talk overall. The
Hmm.
idea is that there's there's really four different kinds of energy
Hmm.
that we should be able to seamlessly weave through in every conversation.
Hmm.
And I like to use the mnemonic head, heart, fire, and fun.
Hmm.
So, head energy is your power energy. It is your really interesting, adding facts and curiosity
Hmm.
in there. The maybe contradiction, but it's that fact power energy.
Okay.
And then number two is heart.
Hmm.
That's where you connect with people. And it might be through joy, it might be through concern, it might be through empathy, it might be, happy or sad, either way, but there's a personal level of connection through the heart.
Hmm.
The third energy is fire. This is where we're talking aspirational, where you want to inspire people, where like we need to do better here. We've got one more month till the end of the quarter. We need to meet sales rep. There's that galvanizing kind of energy to it. And then the last one is fun.
Hmm.
And that should be pretty self-explanatory. So the ability to just make someone smile, make
Correct.
someone laugh, add a little bit of levity. And it's not that you need to have 25, 25, 25, 25% of
Hmm.
each in every talk. That will almost never
Hmm.
be the case. But even if it's something really sad, the ability to add a little tiny bit of levity just to break the tension once in a while, to put people at ease, to there's many reasons. If you we mentioned earlier the whole idea of the comedian who said 4 out of 5 people would rather be in the coffin than giving the eulogy at a funeral. That's number one, I shared that and it made you laugh
Hmm.
at the beginning. So we started the conversation with a little bit of fun energy, even though I've given a lot of head energy and,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
examples throughout.
Hmm.
And the point is, in equally in the eulogy itself, it's a sad time. Someone died, but you're not just mourning the death. At least in my culture, I can't speak for yours, but in my culture, when someone is speaking the eulogy, delivering a eulogy, speaking at someone's funeral, it's a celebration of the person's life. So we're
Okay.
supposed to tell stories about that person, some of which were their funny parts and their endearing qualities. And you want the people who have gathered to laugh and smile, enjoy at remembering the person's life. So, yes, it's a funeral, but there should be opportunities to make people
Yeah.
laugh.
Exactly.
Yes, so you want
Right.
to add fun, humor, even in
Hmm.
what's going to be a lot of heart
Hmm.
at that moment. So can you shift those energies? And depending on what, so back to your original point about when should people do what with your voice,
Hmm.
you have to start by thinking, what is the energy that I want to lead with and that I want to convey to
Hmm.
the audience? If this is a heart moment, then there should be heart in my voice, and I want you to feel the heart with me. If this is, I want to inspire you, it doesn't matter if you're somebody who's an introvert and you think you have a low voice and you're not used to, if you want to inspire people, you can. You just have to. So, this is me using more of an inspirational, a fire
Hmm.
energy, because I want you to feel inspired and to feel that fire inside and to believe in yourself. But I can't just tell you, you should believe in yourself. You should try harder to do it. You don't feel me that I believe it. So whatever is the feeling, the emotion you want the people to feel is the emotion that you need to deliver your message with, and that will lead your voice to different pitches and different levels.
Okay. Okay. It's really interesting. Now, another things about the pause. Now, how important to pause in a speech? Many times the speaker could forget something they want to talk about, or sometimes they want to convey the people about the posing, why they are posing, and after that they want to convey the message. So can silence be a tool about the emphasis and the connection?
Absolutely. The worst thing you can do is just keep talking and talking and talking and never take a breath, and then make your second point and then make your third point and keep on going, because oh my gosh, it's overwhelming. There's just
Hmm.
too much. There's like a wave, a tidal wave of sound coming at you. You can't digest
Hmm.
that much information. People's brains need a moment to catch up with their ears.
Hmm.
So if you give some information, finish the sentence and then let there be a little break between. It doesn't have to be a 5-second pause.
Hmm.
That's a really long and
Yeah,
uncomfortable pause,
exactly.
right? So but just where, think of it this way: when you're typing to someone, if you're sending an email,
Hmm.
you need to put a period at the end of the sentence and then a space bar,
Correct.
right? One space.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then you start your next sentence. If you don't, and you just put the period, but then no space and no space between the words, it just looks like this giant string of letters.
Correct.
Your eye needs the space,
Hmm.
just a teeny little bit. Similarly, your ears need the space.
Hmm.
You hear the end of my sentence, and right before I begin the next one, there'll be a little space. And then I start again. So being able to have those little spaces is really important, because it means you are able to complete your thought. You are able to complete your sentence.
Hmm.
Then you begin the next one. It's not one long, rambling, run on sentence of a paragraph that's this long and only one period at the end.
Okay. So there is another thing about the confidence. Can you talk about the difference between appearing, the being authentically confident on the stage?
Mm. The difference between being authentically confident and what?
Being authentic. It's a confident and being authentic on the stage.
Well, I think they are related, and you want both.
Hmm.
Now, so let's understand that you don't have to inform if you're nervous, and if you're on stage, it's good to be a little bit nervous, because that is your that means your standards are high. That means you care
Right.
about giving the audience a good experience. So that's good. If you feel a little bit of butterflies in your stomach, that little bit of nervous energy, that's healthy.
Hmm.
So we don't want to feel nothing beforehand. But you don't need to confess
Hmm.
the nerves to the audience either. It's not hiding, it's not inauthentic or dishonest. If you don't say, "Hi, Samir, I'm Laura. Thank you for inviting me. I just want you to know, and I want everybody out there to know, that I'm really nervous about being here, and I'm kind of intimidated to be on your show. Thanks for inviting me."
That's
Why
it.
would I say that? Even if it were true, why would I say that? It's not inauthentic
Hmm.
to not
Hmm.
say that. I don't have to confess those nerves.
Hmm.
It's so let's be clear about what authenticity is. But if you know that you want to share certain information with the audience, and it is your expertise, it is your passion, it is the area that you want to be talking about, they should feel that your truth, that you want to be sharing it with them, that you are happy to be there. That, and you should project yourself. This is where that forward secret about it's not about you. When this is where they need to feel that your primary focus is them, not yourself. If you focus on yourself, the confidence will pull back. That's where you go, what if I do this? What if I make a mistake? What if they don't like it? What if, what if, what if? Oh no, oh no, oh no. And then the words and the voice and the body language all starts to
Yeah.
crumble. And that's where the confidence is gone. And you look and sound not confident. So put that aside. Focus. What matters most today? What do I need to give to you and to your listeners? That's what I'm passionate about. And I'm confident in that passion and in what I believe is most important to share with you. So that's where my confidence comes from, is my conviction in the value that I want to give to you. And that should be my driving force. And you should feel that from my heart and from my content and my delivery.
But what about the persons who are faking about the confidence. I call it the imposter syndrome.
Mm,
Some people experience like that, right? When
sure.
speaking in front of the experienced audiences,
Mm.
how can they overcome about the internal barrier?
The going back again to that same four-word secret,
Hmm.
remembering, okay,
It's
let's
not about
say
me.
you're a manager and you have to present to the leadership team, to the
Hmm.
executives in your company.
Hmm.
It's very common for people to feel a little bit of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome, for those who don't know, is the simple definition is the fear of being exposed as a fraud.
Hmm.
Now, not a real fraud of someone who's totally lying and pretending that you're a surgeon when you're not really a surgeon. That's a whole different level of fraud.
Right.
The but the idea is the fear that someone is going to look at you and say, "Why are you speaking to us? You're not worthy. You don't belong here. You're
Hmm.
not good enough. You're not smart enough." The fear that the audience might be thinking that. And we get sucked into that what if
Hmm.
fear. But that means you're thinking about you.
Hmm.
At that point, it's all about you. What about me? What about me? So think to yourselves once again, okay, I've been given this opportunity to speak, to present information to this leadership team. This is a great opportunity. I want to give them the best value possible. Let me do my research, not just about the content, but what they want to know. Why do they want to know about it? What information are they going to, or what are they going to do with it?
Hmm.
What's because they don't just need the details. They're going to take all of it and they're going to apply it for some big decision later. Well, let me find out in advance. What, why do they need my details?
Hmm.
And let me try to shift the way that I present it so that it is even more useful for that purpose. And I don't get lost in a bunch of details that they don't really need. Yes, it's all connected, but they'd rather I spend more time on this than on that. Okay, do your research, figure out how to give them the best experience possible. And that's the truth. If you are nervous in general about it, breathe. Number one, don't hold your breath.
Hmm.
And focus most on identifying what they want and give it to them.
Have you ever faced in your life that when you speak on the stage, the peoples are like they are not expressive, all they have the poker face, just
Mm-hmm.
steady, that they are just listening steady, and they are doing that, just giving no expression. Do you feel nervous at that time?
I mean, I always love there are when there's a lot of positive audience energy.
Hmm.
But I've spoken at conferences, I've given trainings for large and small groups, and inevitably you find someone
Hmm.
first who does. You see them nodding along a little bit, or you see a smile at certain points, and you go, okay, I'm going to start by focusing not 100% on you, but I'm going to every now and then come back to that person for the positive reinforcement.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'll play with the audience a little bit. Like I remember doing a training once. There were maybe 200 people in the room speaking at an event, and I'd make some comments, and I could see that there were parts of the audience that would, smile along or nod, or they'd raise their hands and agree with certain things. And over on the other side,
Hmm.
there was a group of guys, and they were just sort of sitting there. They had their arms folded, their posture was down, and they had just these very straight faces staring at me the entire time. And so I decided to make them my pet. And I looked at them and I said, "You over there, I see you. I will make you smile by the end of the day. You will be mine. Trust me." And the whole rest of the audience burst out laughing. And a couple of them like cracked just a little bit of a smile. And I was like, "You I see you. Don't think I'm going to forget." And that became the running joke. I don't know whether, and I think I said something like, "Let me guess, you're IT, aren't you?" And then that whole place lost it. So it's just because the engineers that were, typically the more serious kinds of like, so we called them out I called them out for what it was. I was right on that one. And it broke the tension. Not that there was a lot, but it helped loosen everybody up even more, broke them a little bit. And every now and then I'd come back to that little group over there. I was like, okay. So it added a level of fun, and it added credibility. Again, know your audience, because there are some audiences that, may not be receptive to certain things. But that showed that I wasn't taking myself too seriously. I wasn't going to be angry that they weren't responding the way I wanted them to respond. That I could receive different kinds of people, and that I was going to make it more fun for everybody else. And trust me when I tell you, you don't have to be a comedian, but if you can add a little bit of fun to any opportunity, it makes everyone else enjoy the learning more. Think about your favorite teachers back in school,
Yeah,
the
agree.
ones who made learning fun, right? It wasn't that they weren't serious. It wasn't that they weren't expert. You trusted them. You just liked going to their classes more
Yeah.
than the boring ones who are also experts. So adding just a little bit of fun makes people that much more interested in listening to you.
Yeah. Today morning that I saw the video about the one host that he was speaking, and around it there's 1,000 people. Yeah. Okay, the audience. So he found that one of the lady was sleeping. So he asked the audience to stay quiet for 1 minute. Okay. He went to that particular place where that woman is sleeping. He pinched it. He pinched her, but still stays. He was not awake. And
Mm.
after a while, that she awake, everyone was watching her, and it was so hilarious at that time.
Yeah. So he figured out a way to break the tension.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's a big part is as a comedian, you need to be able to improvise.
Yeah.
That helps. But really, even if you're not a comedian, you need to be able to improvise, which is why I don't like memorizing scripts for speeches, why I don't like memorizing scripts for presentations, because something's going to happen. Someone asks a question, or you have to, they want you to jump ahead to another section. You must be able to pivot. That shows your expertise. You're not stuck where if I forget the next sentence, I'm doomed because I don't know what else to
Yeah.
say. You have to have the flexibility to be able to adapt to the needs of the audience.
Okay. Now let's talk about the hook. That every strong opening is said hook. Like, so what are the most effective ways to start a speech with the hook? Is there any standardized about the hook that, or let's say every stage, like when you're speaking into the conference, when you're speaking on the stage, the hook should be the different, right? How can I decide that what is the best hook for me?
It always depends on the topic, the audience, the event, the context. So we have to take those things into consideration. And a hook, if you're talking a 7-second Instagram video, the hook has to be instant.
Correct.
In a longer program, a hook can be a minute or 5-minute opener. What's the story that you're going to tell to begin? I remember last year I was in Denmark doing a training. I had about 300 management consultants in this in the room, and they had they were from all over Europe. They spoke many different languages. Of course, I was doing the training in English, but when I got up and I began, I thanked them for inviting me, and I acknowledged the fact that I was going to be speaking in English, and so to let me know if I needed to slow down or clarify something. I acknowledged how impressed I was that everyone in this room was multilingual. And I asked, how many people out of curiosity speak, 3 languages reasonably fluently, had hands. And I took a survey, 4 languages, 5 languages, 6 languages, some of them. So amazing. I mentioned, I speak 4 to varying degrees. And I said, but I decided to, knowing I was coming to Denmark and Danish is not a language that I was at all familiar with, I started using Duolingo. You know the app Duolingo? So, and I only had about 3 months to prepare. So I started using, and I asked how many people have used Duolingo for something, and like 90% of the hands went up. They'd all tried it at some point. I said the problem, of course, is that in 3 months worth of Duolingo, you don't really learn much that's useful.
Exactly.
Especially for traveling purposes. So I said, really, at this point, all I know how to say is, and I recited one sentence that I remembered, and I think the sentence translated to like, the boys and the girls eat bread. And I said that in Danish, which is just a totally useless statement, but I said it well. And the group burst out laughing, and then they all stood and gave me a round of applause, like a standing ovation for it. And I thought, oh, that's all I needed for applause. I think I'm going to leave now. Bye. Thank you very much. It's not going to get better than that. And I started to walk off the stage, and they all laughed again. So that was my hook. And it was, a 2-minute story of sorts, but it was a way to connect. It was a way to acknowledge them and not feel like, well, I'm better than you because I'm here. And just so that I'm not your typical American or your stereotypical American who only speaks English and assumes everybody else must speak English. And so I shared a little vulnerability there. And, I was vulnerable in saying, I only have one sentence, and it's a super silly, basic, useless sentence. Whoever uses the sentence, boys and girls eat bread. No one ever.
Right.
It's not a useful sentence, but it was just something to kind of make them smile, and they appreciate it. And now it's like, all right, so and then there was a transition, of course, to how that was related to the topic of the day. And we went from there. So, your hook should be something that either captures attention or that allows you to relate to the audience, can elevate them, can bring you. If you're going to do something that shows vulnerability and a little humility, it needs to be done confidently at the same time. And that's a trick, right? So it's not saying, well, I only know one sentence in Danish, and I'm so sorry I can't do this in Danish. And, I hope you still want to listen to me. And that's,
yeah,
what's
that's
wrong with
annoying.
you?
Yeah.
Right. That's not vulnerability. That's just get off the stage.
Exactly.
So to be able to not take myself too seriously, I could say, this is all I learned. Sorry. And, everybody appreciated the effort that I
Right.
had made in it, and the connection, and we can relate to each other. So does that help as far as the hook is
Yes,
concerned?
yes. So while you speak on the stage, have you ever used about the storytelling? Because storytelling has been the proven engagement with
Yeah.
the audience, right?
Yes. Well, that was an example. That as a story I told of my efforts, in my 3-month effort to learn Danish. And
Yeah.
so that was a short story right there. Absolutely.
So what kind of story that the host should pick up, right? Depends on the audience. They have to go with the humor, or they with the talking about the history. What is the strategy about the storytelling?
Oh, there are so many. It really is. What is your purpose in telling the story? You want a story to do what? Is it something where you're asking for donations for a nonprofit? Then you want a story that's a case study of where you've made this kind of difference in the life of a child, and who needs to be adopted, or who needs a surgery from a developing nation that doesn't have certain the need. You have to connect somehow with them. What is this child or this purpose? Is it a statistic that you're sharing? What would that look like? Is it? I mean, stories have so many purposes. They can also be metaphorical. They can be imaginary. Like, we have this current situation now. In the future, we have two choices. In the next 20 years, if we stay the course, this is what the world will look like. Imagine this, imagine this, imagine this. Or if we make certain changes in our health, in our, whatever it is, this is what your life might look like. Imagine feeling this and having that and being able to do these kinds of things. Those are hypothetical stories, but they allow the people to put themselves in that space. And those are powerful experiences. So stories do not have to be real. You can't lie. You can't pretend that you're telling the story about a child who never existed. That's different. But the idea is that a story is supposed to illustrate a concept that you want people to understand. And stories make data relatable.
Correct.
And they add emotional connections to stories. So an important point, Samir, is that you can't just tell a story. You must experience a story. And the way we talked earlier about delivery and about tonality, the way that you share the story has to make people believe that you're feeling it as you're telling it, and they're going to reflect that same energy or combination of energies, think about those 4 energies, back as you're telling that story. If you're just reciting the list of facts that happened in the story, that's not storytelling.
Right. So how can a speaker ensure the message resonates emotionally while also providing the logical value.
It goes back to the idea about when you're so what is the logic and what is the data that you're trying to transfer? What story do you choose to illustrate
Hmm.
that point, that need, um, that goal, and why did you choose that story?
Hmm.
Then ask yourself, what energy do I want people to feel and to experience when I'm telling this story? Do I want them to be inspired?
Mhm.
Want them to feel empathetic? And do I want them to feel passionate? Do I want them to feel enthusiastic about something? Do I want them to feel terrified
Hmm.
at the prospect? Whatever it is, I have to feed them that energy. So you have to dig into yourself
Hmm.
and be able to deliver the story, to explain the content with that appropriate energy type in order to be able to get them to feel it.
Right. So what about the body language that when you speak about the audience, but how can you identify the body language of your audience and how to react in the real time?
So we're talking about reading audience body
Yes.
language.
Right.
The I think it starts, of course, with facial expressions. As you are watching them, what are you talking about?
Hmm.
And again, what is your energy? I'm going to keep repeating that, right? What is the energy that you want them to feel, which means you have to feed it to them first. And then what is the reaction that you're looking for? If it is something that's really interesting, you may want to see them, this kind of the thinking face a little bit with the eyebrows, or it's like a slow nod of or maybe a hand on the chin or something that tells you that they're processing what you're saying. Are you sharing something happy? Are you sharing something exciting? Are you sharing something that's funny? Hopefully they're smiling. There's a lot that's pretty intuitive when you are looking and you know that you want some kind of reaction from a story. I mean, if they're staring at their phone, that's a pretty good indicator that you're not connecting with your audience.
Right.
I mean, one or two, sure, they've got emergencies. They're trying to
Yeah,
multitask
exactly.
with their phone while they're sort of listening to you, but you need to respond. They just got 12 texts about some whatever problem.
Hmm.
Okay. But on the whole, is the general energy, if the majority of the people are on their phones, that's a problem. That's a you problem. If one or two people are on their phones and the rest are attending, then the one or two who are on their phones, that's a them
Hmm.
problem, not your problem. So, how do you, I would say look at the audience and see first, do you have their attention?
Hmm.
And then what is their face doing?
Hmm.
They're not going to be moving much of their body. It's going to be more about posture and
Right.
facial expressions,
Hmm.
right? So watch the posture. Are they leaning in? Are they just are they arms folded? Arms folded tends to be a closed off
Yeah.
feeling.
Many
Um,
people are lying down like that.
yeah. If they're asleep, that's a whole different
Exactly.
problem. So, yes.
Okay. Now, yeah, that is also another thing that I want to ask. There's a peoples of 50, right? And there's a peoples of the 1,000 peoples. Your energy should be the same about the 50 people as for the 1,000 people. And that is also possible, as you said, in the 1,000 people, for the last row, they are just texting, messaging, or they are just watching the phone. Is it necessary to get the attention from that audience?
Do you
Do
want
you,
their attention? If you don't want their attention, then I don't know why they're there, or I don't know why you are there. One of those questions.
so
So,
what? So mostly that you are focus on the first row, or that you want to focus on the whole audience?
my belief is that as a speaker, I don't care if there's 10 people or
Hmm.
10,000 people in
Hmm.
the room. I want every person in the room to feel like I am talking to them
Okay.
personally. So I heard recently a great speaker, Sally Lou Lovejoy, who used to be Oprah Winfrey's
Hmm.
executive producer, if you know who Oprah was. And Sally Lou said, it was a great quote. She said, a good speaker will tell you their story. A
Hmm.
great speaker will tell you your story.
Wow.
Yes. So, like, everybody in that room should somehow see themselves reflected in
Hmm.
something that you're talking about.
Mm.
And that's what makes a great speaker. I'm hoping that in our conversation today, and there's no one else physically in this conversation with us, but whether people are listening to our conversation tomorrow or next year, whether they're in India or the US or South Africa or Mongolia, I don't care. I want them to listen and feel like, oh, Samir knew what questions to ask for me. And wow, Laura's advice just, I don't know how she knew what my own fear was, but I'm sitting here in Mongolia and my head is nodding, even though she's in the US and Samir's in India and they're having this conversation. It's somehow they knew, they could see into me.
Right.
That's what we want. So, and I love getting a huge audience engaged. And
Right.
I love that feeling.
So have you ever faced in your time that, or the tough situation, I can say, that while doing your question answer with the audience, have you feel, or they criticize you?
Sure. Yeah. And
So
it depends
how to
on.
handle that criticize while in the middle of the whole audience,
Mhm.
right? In the whole that they are criticize you, how to handle that particular situation?
Well, in part, it depends on what the criticism is.
Hmm.
Right. Are they attacking me personally? Are they contradicting a fact
Hmm.
that I said? Um, there's there's somebody who I was talking to a group once, and somebody made a comment. It started out sounding like a compliment,
Mhm.
and then he kind of worked it around he was basically criticizing my body language, saying that I was
Oh,
moving
okay.
too much and he didn't like it and he thought it was distracting. And, he made some sarcastic comment about, I thought maybe you were also doing sign language while you were talking. And so I thought about it for a moment and I said, do you play tennis? And he said, no, not really. Why? I said, because you have an amazing backhand. And in the U.S., I mean, of course, in tennis, there's
Yeah.
the foreswing and backhand. But in English in the U.S., a backhanded compliment means one that sounds like a compliment but is really an insult.
Yeah, exactly.
So, when I asked because I told him he had a great backhand, the whole audience burst out laughing. And because I was going to give it back to him. And frankly, his comment made everyone else uncomfortable because it was obnoxious.
Right.
There are some people in the audience who just need to speak because their ego needs to prove to everyone else that they are smarter than the speaker. I
Right.
don't know why they have that need. It was utterly inappropriate. Now, did everybody else agree? Did they like my body language, not like my body language? Doesn't matter. That was rude to make the comment in the way that he did. It served no purpose whatsoever. So I played with it and I just gave it back to him. And it sounded like 8 people came up to me afterwards and were like, we are so sorry he made that comment. That's, please don't take it out on the rest of us. Come back to our organization. We want you to, so yeah, there's
Yeah,
always,
they are not with me.
right. Exactly. Like he's not with us.
Yeah, it's not.
If he does have a membership, we're revoking it tomorrow. So
Agree. So that was the next question about that humor. As you already given the answer, that can the humor be a risky? So definitely it's not. It's depend on the situation, right?
well, it can be risky. You can certainly tell the wrong joke to the wrong people.
Yeah, it could be.
Yes. Oh, sure. Because you have to know your culture. So and humor is verbal, humor is body language, if I were talking to I speak to a lot of different cultural groups, a lot of corporate groups, like women's groups, Asian Pacific groups, even within the United States and American corporations. For example, there are those employee resource groups that are, the veterans and the LGBT groups and the African American groups, et cetera. If I were speaking to a group that was a Muslim
Yeah,
a group of some sort, I wouldn't tell jokes that include pigs or
correct.
pork, or I would change a slide. I have a slide in some presentations that's a picture of bacon because we're talking about vocal fry and whatever else. I would change that picture
Okay.
because it's not appropriate
Hmm.
for them. And some people might care, some people might not, but why risk it?
Yeah, exactly.
Find a different joke, find a different picture. It doesn't, there's an analogy I've used at different points about the relationship between content and delivery, and that they're two sides of the same coin. But if you have really great if you have great content,
Hmm.
but terrible delivery, it's like dipping a pearl in mud.
Hmm.
There's great stuff in there, but you can't find it. If you have lousy content, but great charismatic delivery, but no real message, it's like putting lipstick on a pig.
Right.
It's not particularly useful. At best, it might be entertaining, but it's usually a waste of time and it's not nice to the pig. And I can tell that to you, and you're laughing at me. I don't know what your religious or cultural background is. I took the risk that you would appreciate the analogy. Some people would laugh at that. I would not tell that to a Muslim group just because it might be uncomfortable for some people.
Yeah.
So you have to adjust accordingly. And there are also comments that I will make if it's just a women's group. There are things I can say that a group of women will all completely agree with, just from, growing up, being adolescent teenagers, and just the girl world that I would not say in a mixed audience. Just not that it's embarrassing or inappropriate, but men wouldn't be able to relate to it. So I'll share that little bit of girl vulnerability, female vulnerability with another group of women. Know your audience. Always think about your audience.
Okay, I'll keep it in mind.
Mhm.
Okay, now let's talk about the future of the public speaking.
Mhm.
Okay, so nowadays, as you know, there's a rise of the virtual communication.
Oh, yes.
Right now, we are doing the virtual communication. How can a speaker add up their skills to engage the remote audience effectively?
I think people need to behave as if they were there. I think most people still join, whether it's Zoom or Teams or whatever, they click join meeting, and then they want to rename themselves in the window with a disclaimer that says, I just want you to know, if you met me in person, you'd be impressed. And that's terrible. I mean, I'm not saying they would literally want to do that, but it's as if they do, because there's this general mediocrity with
Okay.
how people show up. And they just sort of sit there, and most of them don't even frame their camera right. They're way down at the bottom of their screens here. And, if I were going to talk to you like this the entire time, doesn't it just look
No.
worse? It looks
Yes,
very
exactly.
unpowerful.
Yeah.
It looks very small. It looks like I don't care. It looks like I'm hiding. So already I'm making a bad first impression on you.
Right.
So, you need to be able to sit up and to have a solid, own the screen. We talk a lot about owning the room. Well, you have to own the screen too. Take up the whole thing. Even the sound. I don't care what your role is. I don't care how much money you make. Don't use the microphone that's in the computer. I think most people's computers have terrible microphones, and they sound like this when they're talking. I mean, if I
Yeah.
switch right now to my other microphone, where is it? Let's see. So this is the internal microphone
Wow.
in my
Terrible.
computer. It's a very different sound, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Terrible.
I'm not changing the way that I'm talking, but this is how it comes across. And it makes you suddenly not want to listen to me, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Now watch when I shift to my other one. Now, doesn't it feel like I'm right there in the room with you?
Exactly.
There's
Just
a
just sitting
different
besides me. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And there's a different energy. We're back to energy again. It
Right.
changes the energy. You feel like I'm a real person, not a recording
Right.
someplace. So just being able to little things like that.
Hmm.
I haven't changed my message at all. I haven't changed my speaking style. I just, when it's the bad microphone and bad framing in the camera, I'm sabotaging myself by making a bad first impression before you even hear the first sentence.
Exactly. Agree.
So people need to not do that.
Yeah. And in right now in the age of the AI, right?
Mhm.
How the AI generated speech and the virtual avatar, do you think that human speaker will remain irreplaceable, and why?
I think so, because an audience generally wants to connect with the speaker. No one's going to show up to an event to hear a recorded or some automated voice.
Hmm.
AI might be great for content, but I could stay home and listen to that. I don't need to come to hear someone. So they want to connect with the human. And I think people want to be seen. And if I stay here, I cannot be seen if I'm the audience member. So how, the ability to look audience members in the eye, the ability to ask them questions, the ability to engage, and just the energy that is shifted that is transferred between one person and the other when you're in person is different from when it's virtual. Now, you can get pretty close if you do a good job, but people want to connect with people. People don't want to connect with AI.
So do you believe that in the future, maybe that could be it's a kind of a virtual meeting that
Hmm.
you can wear the VR glasses, right?
Hmm.
You are sitting at your home, but you are addressing the whole audience.
Mm.
They are sitting somewhere else, everyone in there, but they feel that they are in the hall room. Okay, it's
Hmm.
with around 1,000 people.
Sure.
So there is a one professor called Chris McDonald from the Cambridge University.
Mm. Okay.
That, that's he made a kind of a research on that the people who are facing the anxiety about the public speaking on the
Hmm.
stage fear, right? So he gave that particular person up to wear that VR glasses and try to deliver the speech. You won't believe that the person is now get rid of the anxiety. He's a full of the energy.
Interesting.
What are your thoughts on that one? Do you believe that in the future that could be a possibility of conduct the virtual meeting like that?
Oh, it would not surprise me at all. I think that sounds very realistic as far as where things are going. We're already doing Zoom and having virtual conferences with, 10,000 people.
Hmm.
That's totally normal. So just doing it three-dimensional, putting on glasses as opposed to staring at a giant monitor
Hmm.
and having the speaker be able to feel as if they were in the audience. I'd be curious to know if when you're in the virtual arena, are you just seeing little avatars or are you
Hmm.
actually seeing the real faces of the attendees? I'm sure either or both are possible depending on who it is. So it's I think anything is possible.
Yeah, I definitely. And it would be really interesting to know about that, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, it's about the rapid fire round.
Okay.
I'll ask you the 10 questions. Okay, that's a one word option only.
One word. Okay.
Yeah. So, biggest fear on the stage, is it forgetting lines or audience reaction?
That's a good question. I don't know that either is a bigger fear for me. You learn to ad lib in both. So I know it's not a one word answer, but sorry, I'm going to pass on that one.
Okay, preferred speaking style, storytelling or data driven?
Oh, storytelling.
Best way to calm nerves, breathing or visualization?
Breathing for me.
Power move on stage, eye contact or strong opening?
Both required.
Most important vocal element, pitch or pace?
Pitch.
Public speaking icon, TED speaker or motivational coach?
Motivational probably TED speaker.
Okay. Worst speech mistake, rambling or monotone?
These are hard, Samir. Which is worse? That's a great question. Um, Monotone.
Okay. Virtual or in person speech?
As far as which is my preference?
Yes.
Oh, in person.
Best confidence booster, practice or positive feedback?
Um, Positive feedback.
Okay. One word tip for the stage fear, breathe or focus?
Breathe.
Yeah, that's it.
All
So,
right.
so last one that I really wanted to know that as you went in the TED Talks, what is the procedure to go in the TED Talks? Suppose if I want to go in the TED Talks, I want to deliver something to audience. What should I do?
The TED industry has changed a lot in the last 10 to 20 years.
Mhm.
And so now you have to go online and look for a call for speakers.
Mhm.
I would just Google TEDx call for speakers, um, and you'll see which events are coming up, where they are geographically, if there's a theme to the conferences, et cetera. And then usually there's a link where you can apply. And they will tell you what you need to include. If you have to submit a blurb and an outline, if you need to have a 2 minute video a summary or example of you explaining what this would be. So you have to create the right assets.
Okay.
And then you hope that you get called. I don't know. There could be 10 applicants. There could be 1,000 applicants
Hmm.
for one. It depends on where it is. It depends on when it is. There are many things. It has changed a lot. I've given 3 TED Talks, and for all of them, I was invited.
Okay.
So I never had to go to through the application process. But once you're in, the process to actually prepare and deliver the TED Talk is always the same,
Okay. So
more or less.
suppose after the one TED Talks that you have that attend, they are inviting after others. They are inviting. Suppose in the next time that any event will happen, they are inviting you also about.
You mean to come back and do it
Yeah.
again for the same? No, they'll always have different speakers. They'll never invite the same person back twice.
Oh, okay. So it happen only one time only.
No, I've given 3 talks
Oh,
for
okay.
3 totally different organizations and
Oh, okay.
events, but
Mhm.
all 3 of them, they invited me to talk. I was invited by the organizers for each university, or for each. One was for a university. I'm not sure where that came from. One for the university, one was for the military, and one was a different university, actually. So there were 3 different organizations, and each one, for various reasons, found out about my work and invited me to come and speak.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Laura, so much for coming. It was really wonderful conversation with you today. Really, you blow my mind, and definitely that I'll improve myself also. That today you give me the wonderful tips, and thank you for coming.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation, Samir.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Laura.